Hello everyone, I am Tessellating Hexagons, and after many delays for many reasons, the time has finally come for me to take a look at the song that will represent the Netherlands on home soil in 2021, because, I was delayed in reviewing this because of moving house, but also, it's been the Netherlands home entry. They didn't get to host last year, even though they were supposed to, so, delays upon delays, but it's finally time. And just like last year, the Netherlands will be represented by Mr. Jeangu Macrooy. Now, I seem to recall hearing that he sometimes goes by they-them pronouns, and I can't find any sources confirming or denying that, so my apologies if I do accidentally misgender him, or them. I need to find better sources on this. Anyway, this year, the Dutch entry will be entitled Birth of a New Age. It's presented in English with a couple of lines in Surinamese, which is an English-Dutch Creole language that is spoken, as the name implies, in Suriname. Now you might think, well, why is the Surinamese language representing the Netherlands? Because Jeangu is part Surinamese, part Dutch, and also because Suriname does have a bit of history with the Netherlands that I'm not qualified to talk about. Anyway, music and lyrics this year by Jeangu himself and Peter Perquisite Perquin, so the same team as last year. Let's see what you've got this year then. I'll be honest, the Netherlands was a total wildcard for me this year in terms of expectations. Jeangu is just that kind of artist, but I mean that as a compliment. He could bring anything to the table. What I didn't anticipate was how rude and unpleasant the loud part of the fandom has been so far in response to this song. But I'm so tired of calling people out at this point. Just, come on people, stop acting like bratty little trolls. Anyway, personally, I have sort of mixed feelings about this song. I feel like I should like it more than the Dutch entry from last year, just in terms of personal taste, but the truth is, I think I like it roughly the same amount, but in a different sort of way. This isn't the kind of music that I ordinarily listen to, but I'm open to it, and I like the self-assured strength with which it's presented. Jeangu is another artist this year for whom I have an immense amount of adoration and admiration and respect, regardless of how I feel about their song. So, right from the word go, in the whole positive things you might like department, we need to talk about this song's sense of identity. It's as strong in terms of musical uniqueness as it is in terms of the level of unabashed culture that it brings to the contest. Diversity is always good, no matter how near or far it comes to us from, and there's a certain degree of sincerity that comes across in the performance because of it tying so strongly into Jeangu's Surinamese roots. I think that is probably something else to highlight, really. Not just for the cultural aspect, but as a whole package, this song exudes a powerful aura of, sincerity, wholesomeness, and, in a manner of speaking, almost nakedness. This song isn't hiding behind any fancy gimmicks or misdirections or anything like that. It's just Jeangu and Team Netherlands turning up, living their best lives for 3 minutes, and owning every second of it in a way that invites us to join the celebration with them, should we choose to do so. The lyrics are a very important part of that too. Suriname is by no means the only country on the planet to have history like this, so plenty of people across the whole world will be able to find some relatability in the song's message, one of bouncing back stronger than ever after freeing oneself from being under the thumb of oppression. In fact, it doesn't even have to be about that exactly. You could also interpret it as a song about spiritual growth and liberation from any kind of hardship, really, even on a smaller scale as, for example, escaping a school bully or, that sort of thing. So the lyrics are strong, relatable, and delivered in a sincere way. That is the tea here. And finally, there's that final minute or so of the song that acts like sort of its version of the Eskista section of Israel's song from last year, and that is a superficial comparison on my part, just not because of how it sounds, but because of its effect, its intention, its purpose in the song. In that it's the point where the song really pushes its cultural aspects above and beyond into overdrive in an uplifting and engaging way. It gives a very welcome boost of energy to the party. It turns the flavour up to 11, and it invites us to join in the festivity as equals, whether we're familiar with the culture or not. It's their way of saying, we're doing our thing, come and join us if you like. You don't have to be one of us to join us. So in short, it's fun to listen to, and it really embodies the spirit of what Eurovision is about, bringing people together through the power of music. Mi lovi dati bakrokonda, grantangi. Nevertheless, I completely understand why not everyone is going to love this song, and that is entirely fair enough. For example, in a way very similar to Jeangu's song from last year, there's this submelodic auxiliary line that can sound rather droning if you focus on it. Especially if you're not engaged with the song as a whole. Or, let me put it in slightly less fancy terms, the of the piano. That can be a bit taxing on the ears because it's a regular rhythmic repetition of a note of the same frequency over a prolonged period of time. You might like it, you might not notice it, or it might bother you. These are all distinct possibilities that will affect how you engage with the song. Similarly to that, there's that repeated line of, "Your rhythm is rebellion." In itself, I think that's an absolutely brilliant lyric, but you might personally feel that it comes up so often that it loses its impact before too long. What wouldn't help there is the way that it's further emphasised by the choir of backing vocals, and given that it pops up in prominent locations throughout the main corpus of the song, it is rather difficult to tune out if you do feel like it's starting to get to you. Again, it is purely a matter of personal taste. Either it adds atmosphere, or it runs itself into the ground very quickly. Only you know how you're going to end up feeling about that. Finally, putting the previous 2 points together, I confess that I can understand people growing impatient with this song. If you're on board and willing to join the celebration, it can be a great time, whilst still being a mature, grown-up song. But, on the other hand, if you don't find yourself connecting to the message or the music or any other part of it, I can totally understand where you're coming from if you feel that it can be a bit of a slog to listen to, a bit of a trial. Like, it's the sort of thing where if you're not engaged, you're not going to be engaged, and that's fine. All of this is to say, given its structure and components, I don't necessarily agree, but I would understand if you felt like the song outstayed its welcome. Compositions like this can have that effect on some people after all, and that's fine if you feel that way. But enough speculating on my part as to how other people feel. What about me, clearly the most important person on the internet, and that's why you're watching me? I think, on a personal level, I'll give this song a score of 5 out of 10, but please hear me out with my reasoning here. As previously stated, Jeangu is an artist that I very deeply respect, and I have boatloads of appreciation for the song, the composition, and all of the background. It's just not something that I personally have much rapport with as a piece of music. I don't see myself coming back to it all that often, and I'm not crazily in love with it. However, I do really like what it does and how it does it as a spectator. This is a prime example of a song where I doubt that I would personally give it any points, but if I saw someone else giving it points, if I saw it ascending the scoreboard on the night, I'd be like, yeah, slay, let's get this bread, without giving it any of my own. Basically, the song deserves points, it just doesn't tick the boxes that would get it any of mine, and, opinions are opinions, everyone's got one. So, to that end, I think I'll give it a technical score of 8, albeit a very high 8. Granted, this comes from a culture very far removed from my own, so I can't comment on how academically good it is as an example of its genre of music, but I do think it does a lot of good with the emotions it evokes and the sincerity with which it conveys them. I'm stopped from going any higher than that simply because its methods create something of a choke point when it comes to enduring appeal. I can understand this song struggling to win people over if they get off on the wrong foot with this song, and I can see people feeling as though it drags on, partially due to its dodekakis legomenon of "your rhythm is rebellion," and partly because of the piano accompaniment that can start to drill into your mind if you don't enjoy it. In short, it gets its point across well enough, but it may struggle to turn more people onto this sort of music, if that makes any sense. Now though, arguably the most important time I'll ask this question, given that it is our most gracious host country: how is this as the Dutch response to the cancellation of last year's contest? I think it goes without saying that this is good, it gets a pass, it's a good time. The Netherlands is another one of the countries who wasted no time this year in clarifying they intended to uphold everything they put forward for the 2020 contest, and then they gave that chosen artist the freedom to pursue an entry of their own liking and the support necessary to bring that entry to fruition, as well as to share it in the best and most hyped up possible light. Considering that, as I said, the Netherlands are our host country for this year, I dare say that it's of critical importance that they've chosen to lead by example here. By maintaining their original choice for the contest that never was, it shows their commitment and dedication towards making the show happen, even if it did end up coming a year later than expected. No compromises where possible, just patience and perseverance. The Dutch people can be very proud of what they're standing for this year. As for whether or not this would pass the semi-finals though, remember, the Netherlands, being the host country this year, are pre-qualified for the grand final, so they don't have to worry about making it in the top 10 of one of the semis. Honestly, a part of me thinks that if that weren't the case, the Dutch broadcaster might not have selected this sort of song in the first place. True, the last 20 years have shown us in no uncertain terms that the Dutch broadcaster is never afraid to try something completely different and to see how it hits. But there is a certain degree of risk when you put this much identity and originality on the line, that people will either really love it or massively not respond to it at all. On that basis, I think it would definitely receive a non-zero score from the juries when all is said and done, because there's a lot of objective good that they ought to recognise here, but I really can't speak for the public on this one. Some people are really gonna love it for certain, some people might end up feeling absolutely nothing, and I don't know how that's going to translate into points, really. I fear that it might average out at, between 11th and 15th in some countries' rankings, which would cause it to just barely miss out on points and then suffer accordingly, meaning that a qualification, if necessary, would be in jeopardy, though it wouldn't be an absolute impossibility, and I want to make that abundantly clear. In the final itself, I worry. I don't think enough people would be sold on it for it to win, but this song certainly doesn't deserve to finish in last place. That is the only thing I can say for certain at this point, unfortunately. So this is where you lovely people come in. As always, listen to the song for yourself, come up with your own original thoughts, and, well, if you feel like sharing them, let me know. In this house, we stand diversity of opinion. So, as far as I'm concerned, to Jeangu and Team Netherlands, I wish you the very best of luck, and I look forward to being surprised by what you deliver on the night. See you in May.